Hey everyone, I'm David from 52 Churches in 52 Weeks. Welcome back to this intentional church hopping channel where we typically explore and understand a wide range of different churches. For today's video, I have been looking forward to doing this one for quite some time. Surrounded by the Red Rock in southwest Utah sits the very first temple that was completed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Utah, the historic and iconic St. George Temple. So to set up this video, if you've been following along with this spiritual nomad's journey of mine, you'll know that I've had a series of experiences that make absolutely zero sense when you think about it. And that has especially been paralleled to my understanding and curiosity into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When I made my very first LDS ward visit, and I've mentioned this in other videos, I was really impressed by the church members, just that personal touch and also the convictions that members had. Because with other churches I've been a part of or visited, the concern I have is there's too much reliance, I would say, on email lists and social media. And it's a mindset change that has gotten away from a personal touch, and I haven't seen that as much with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or any Book of Mormon believing church that finds Joseph Smith as part of its lineage. On top of that, and the thing that makes absolutely zero sense, has been my own strange spiritual aspect of Cardinals popping up at various curious times, especially when I started first exploring the church. So I'm not going to rehash the whole thing with that, but in the comments I would typically see people saying, A, you're crazy, or B, if cardinals appear, angels are near, or something about cardinals, if they were nearby, it could be a loved one in a spiritual sense. And it happens so many times where it's like I can't keep denying that this could be something spiritual, even though, again, it makes absolutely zero sense. So along the way, I just want to say thanks from some Latter-day Saint friends of mine who have given me gifts on my spiritual journey to just kind of help remind me of the significance that this has played a part in my own life. Well, fast forward to this time last year in January, I made a visit to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Stringite Church. This was a remnant church that had split after Joseph Smith was martyred in 1844 and was its own Book of Mormon believing church. And after visiting that, it was snowing like crazy. And where I live in Wisconsin, it's very rare to see cardinals. It's even rarer to find in the middle of January. And as I'm driving home, another one just flies right by me. And at this point, if a cardinal appeared, I was doing a mental inventory check on what's going on, if there was any type of significance. And at the time, I was listening to a podcast from Saints Unscripted. It's a very popular LDS YouTube channel. And they had reached out to me in the past about driving out to Utah, maybe do an interview. And at the time, it's like, I'm not a church member. You know, I'm a lifelong Protestant. I had only good things to say about the LDS church, but I didn't know if I would be a good fit. But after I saw that cardinal, I reached back out to them, set up a time. I also made plans and got a ticket for General Conference. And so when I drove out there, the General Conference, like, it blew my mind with everything that happened there. And then on top of that, as I'm driving there, I'm listening to this audiobook of President Nelson being this pioneer in open heart surgery. And then around that same time frame, that week, I'd also learned that my dad was going to be undergoing open heart surgery. So there was this kinship that was developing in my own spiritual journey, just with my own family. So I finished up the 52 churches and kind of figured, all right, I need to touch base with my dad. And, my dad, he's never vulnerable, nothing's wrong. And we never really have any type of deep discussions. But for this one time we did. And I'm telling him about some of the church experiences with General Conference. And then he drops this bombshell on me that my great-grandfather was Mormon in Michigan. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So that activated a whole new curiosity into family ancestry, something I've never cared about ever before in my life. I go to my local ward because now I'm understanding the church specializes in genealogy. I learned much more about my family background. And then as I'm driving out, again, another cardinal flies by and it's like, what is this? So I made my very first temple open house visit a few weeks later in Bentonville, Arkansas. My mind is blown at this because I'm seeing this deep sense of community. I'm seeing this genuine excitement. I'm seeing this amazing atmosphere. And it's like one thing with the beauty inside and outside of the temple, but that's completely different with the hope and spirit that it gives to recommended church members who perform these ceremonies inside. And again, as a lifelong Protestant, my Protestant brain is still kind of processing all of this. It's a lot of things that I don't understand, but I also see this commonality towards Jesus Christ. Anyway, somehow through all of this, with creating new bonds, forming new friendships and relationships, and learning much more about ancestry, somehow through all of this, some of my ancestors have been baptized through the different type of ceremonies performed inside. And it's been a very long time since I've come across a Cardinals sighting. And it's like, with all of this weird series of experiences, with all these Cardinal sightings, was this really something that happened? Was this true about maybe some ancestors of mine? Because I never cared about it before. Like, I didn't know my grandparents at all, other than one grandmother. So when people would say that the Cardinals could be a loved one, that didn't mean anything to me because I didn't know any ancestors other than one grandma. So I don't know. Anyway, due to the overwhelming response from my first temple open house visit in Bentonville, Arkansas, it opened up a lot of doors. And I was able to do 2 temple open houses in Utah recently. One in Orem that I've done another video on. I'll put one of these little cards up here if you want to see how that turned out. And then for this one, I got to go to St. George, this historic pioneer era temple that was built in dedicated in 1877. So my understanding with open houses, obviously, as a Protestant or as someone who's not a temple recommended member, you can't go in unless the temple has been built or refurbished before the dedication or rededication. So there's only a very small time window where the general public can go inside. So with St. George, I made one visit out there and I got stuck in traffic. So I had to make a second try to do this. And I got there on the very last day before the temple open house closed. And I guess the last one was in 1975. So it was like 50 years between time frames where you could go inside if you weren't a member. So I'm going to show a little bit about what it looked like inside. You can't take pictures or photos inside. Only the church can supply that to media outlets. So like previous videos, I'm going to provide that in what you're about to see next. But I guess one thing to add to all of this is by the time I was leaving Utah for that weekend, another strange coincidence appeared. And as a result of everything going on, I just have to lean into this a little bit more, and just keep going to the church at my local ward to just kind of just like, what is this? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but I need to learn more. So I'll show what it looked like inside. I'll elaborate on this visit in just a moment. When I make these visits, I'm trying to be as much of a sponge as possible. Just get in my element, take in as much information as possible, and then just internalize it, decipher it, wrestle with things. Just put yourself in someone else's shoes. With this visit with St. George, this spoke to me much differently than my other two previous Temple Open House visits. And it's not like in this loud, boisterous type of way with any type of direct answers. For me, instead, it's much more about just asking different type of questions, like how does something like this happen? Especially looking into that early church history, the early pioneer history, which I find absolutely fascinating. But it's like, how did this happen? Why would you completely give up your way of living and go into this wild unknown, into the frontier, and you have no money? It's all poverty, and you're just suffering and toiling away due to your faith and your convictions. And even 200 years later, after Latter-day Saint movement first started, like the religion and the faith, it's still facing persecution, it's still facing hardships in different type of ways still to this day. With my first temple visit with the Bentonville, Arkansas one, the number one word that came to mind from that visit was smiles. Like, I was really amazed at just the atmosphere, the excitement, the amount of families that were really excited about this newly built temple in Arkansas. With Orem, it was that idea of growth, with the tree of life, with family trees. You plant the seed, and if you water, you nourish it, you're going to come out with this great fruit, and you can spread that through the world. And it's like that expands in scripture, but that also expands in our lives and how we treat other people. With St. George, like the word that was coming to mind, especially during my tour, was the idea of foundation. And because when you look into the history of how the St. George Temple came about, like the number one thing that I recall from this visit was just the struggles that they had to build a foundation. And in my own type of faith journey, like I'm trying to find a foundation as well. So for me, this is kind of paralleled in my own faith journey, the more that I learn about this. And it's just continual questions that keep popping up and just continual wrestling with different things that I'm learning. The church had already been forced to abandon their 2 previous temples that they had built. With the Kirtland Temple in Ohio, after Joseph Smith was killed, it led to all kinds of confusion about the ownership for that one. And then in Nauvoo, after the Brighamites, with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints moving westward, the Nauvoo Temple actually got hit by a tornado. I guess some accounts said that it almost seemed like the tornado had singled out the temple. And I think for those early Latter-day Saint pioneers, like you have to be wondering yourself, okay, we built these 2 previous temples. We just went westward into the southwest Utah desert, and we have no money, pain, tears, blood, sweat. Like, what's going to happen next? And then in 1871, Brigham Young, the LDS prophet and president at that time, wants to build the very first temple to be completed in Utah. The Salt Lake Temple that they were building was going to be years until that would be completed. They want to get one done first in St. George. And I feel like with those Latter-day Saints, there had to be excitement, but there also had to be a little bit of doubt, because the first 2 tries were all for naught. Like, would this be the one that they would own and, really make it their own? Well, on top of that, the thing that's really curious is Brigham Young found a 6-acre plot of land where to build this temple. And the workers started work on it, but they found that the land was swampy. Like the ground was not firm. There was no solid foundation. And like, if you're a worker, we got to move this place. Like, this is not going to work. But Brigham Young insisted this would be the place to build the temple. So the workers, they created their own drain system to drain as much water as possible so they could get stone to lay the foundation. And then after that, I guess they acquired this cannon that had previously been used by Napoleon when he invaded Moscow. So during his retreat, the cannon got abandoned. Somehow it got to Siberia, then Alaska, then California. Then the Mormon Battalion acquired it and wheeled it out to Utah. So they used it as a pile driver to basically compact the stone to build this foundation. So even Brigham Young said, as soon as this bounces 3 times, then we know we got a good foundation to build this temple. So I'm just kind of going through all of this, how this was even done. But with the construction, and after they completed it, and they only took them about 6 or 7 years to do it, I can only imagine the excitement and the elation that, yes, this is going to be our home. This is going to be where we can finally do our temple ordinances. This is going to be exactly what we need. This is us. This is for us. So again, this had to be something very exciting for the early Latter-day Saints to create that foundation for the faith. For my tour, I can't say enough good things about my tour guide, Steve, and also the co-chairs of the open house, Russ and Dana. What they were able to do for this open house just blows my mind. So I was looking on the church website. I guess 30,000 volunteers helped out during the 9-week open house, apparently 670,000 people walked through for this tour. And on top of that, the last 2 Saturdays had at least 30,000 people walk through for each of those last 2 Saturdays. So just absolutely mind-boggling. And it's like the entire time when I was there, the excitement was just so palpable, atmosphere amazing, and it just went on without a hitch. It was just so well organized. And not only that, but everyone was just in such good spirits. Like everyone was just elated with the temple open house and everything related to it. So my tour guide set the tone very early on with sharing the story of the parable of the pearl and the box. This was a story that was also shared with me at my Orem, Utah temple open house, and it was borrowed from a talk from President Boyd K. Packer in 2000 and has recently been used as well by Elder David Bednar. And I'll touch more on Elder Bednar a little bit later in this video. But the way that the story goes is there's this merchant. He is looking for the world's best pearls, and he comes across the perfect one. And he wants to share it with everyone, so he finds a skilled craftsman to build this amazing box to put it in. So when he's about to share it with different people, people are amazed at the box, not the pearl, the real beauty that's inside of it. And with the whole idea of temples is the idea that Jesus Christ, he is the pearl. He's the pearl inside the temple. And with the temple, it's beautiful, it's ornate, it's amazing, but it's the box. And you have to, with the covenants, with the ordinances, with the endowments inside, it's all focused towards Jesus Christ. During our tour, we went to a number of different rooms, and the tour, I want to say, at least took 2 hours. These rooms just blew my socks off with the pioneer 19th century influence. One that really impressed me was a baptismal font. This was much different than the modern day temples because this had a baptismal font with the 12 oxen, but it was like from 1877 from what I heard. So I was very curious to learn more about how that even got created, over 150 years ago. On top of that, we went to a number of ordnance and instruction rooms. The murals inside, just amazing, just depicting creation, the Garden of Eden, and the Southwest Utah landscape in some of them. Just the detail was something else. But the one room that just blew me away was the assembly hall. This was so 19th century because we walked up this flight of stairs. I don't know if it was the 5th or the 6th story. I can't remember. But we walk into the assembly room, and this place was gigantic with pulpits at both sides. The windows were clear, but they had these white curtains above it, and all the pews were white. And you're walking inside, and I couldn't believe it. This was a church experience, a church room that I had never seen before. And you just kind of wonder as well just how many Latter-day Saint prophets, presidents, council members, Quorum of 12 Apostles had been in that room. So the final room that we went to was a celestial room. And again, with this huge chandelier, like I am just amazed at just this visual and the beauty coming from it. One interesting bit of history for the St. George Temple that is completely unique to any other. I heard a story that the St. George Temple was the very first one where saints could receive temple ordinances for the dead. So Wilford Woodruff, who ended up becoming the 4th president for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I guess he had a vision from the founding fathers and other eminent historical figures to get their endowments completed. So he did a lot of journaling, and I guess the saints completed baptisms for the dead and other ordinances for George Washington, Christopher Columbus, and John Wesley. I can only imagine what other names were included with that list. Before we wrap up this video, just with some final thoughts, one of the unintended things that have happened with this channel is just the love and support in comments from Latter-day Saints, whether it's in the comments on YouTube here, or if it's on Facebook or on Instagram. For all those that have sent me messages, I just want to say thank you very much. Sometimes I've gotten so overwhelmed with the messages, it's hard for me to respond in a timely fashion with many of those. So thank you for your patience if I haven't gotten back to you. One question that I gotten often is, you should join the church, and I always kind of caution myself with that. And it's not like in a way that is mean-spirited or anything like that. It's just, I wouldn't say trust issues, but I'm cautious. And I'm very introverted. I'm very empathetic. So to even do this YouTube channel, it's not because like I want to be famous or anything silly like that. It's just I feel like I have purpose to show others, to show other Christians, here's what church really is like, minus any type of stereotypes if you go to here, or you go here, or you go here. And I think with that, with my personality and having gone through and I mentioned this other videos, like going through narcissistic abuse, going through the gaslighting, going through projections, having just blame shifted on you. It creates this caution, this this smoke alarm in your head to not move forward. And that has also another thing that has also challenged me is I've been a member of 2 churches in the past, and like I talk about with my lifelong church in my book, and then also a second church. I haven't really explained what happened with that. It was very much rooted in the narcissistic abuse. So it's difficult for me to become a member of a church again. And so I've always felt kind of like this wayfaring stranger, this nomad, this spiritual nomad, where I don't really have a church home, but I have Jesus Christ as my foundation. And it's not sola scriptura, it's no creeds, it's Jesus Christ as the foundation. So with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like it's so novel with the Book of Mormon and modern day prophets and temples and everything along with that. So it's very different. So I feel sometimes a little bit like those early Latter-day Saints with St. George, where Brigham Young is telling them, hey, we're going to build this temple on swampy ground. And for me, again, they went through 2 temples previously. Both had failed for those particular Latter-day Saints in Utah. If you do a third one, will this be right? And for the St. George Latter-day Saints and for the Church of Jesus Christ, that one was right. So to go through this temple, it was something else. So they were questioning the foundation, and it worked out. One story in the Bible that has just been stuck in my head for the past week, one character in the Bible that has been stuck in my head all week, has been Lot's wife. And I was talking to someone who's looking back into the past. And maybe for you, maybe it's looking back at a toxic relationship, maybe a divorce. Maybe you had been hurt by a previous church as well. Maybe it was a work situation and you had to get out. And one story from Genesis 19, was that story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And with Lot, like he's at the gate in Sodom, and 2 angels come up to him. And I guess they disguise themselves as men. And Lot brings them in, invites them to wash up, get a meal, here's a bed. But those who were in Sodom were so perverse that they wanted to have their way with these angels, with these men. And it's so bizarre because Lot is protecting them. Like he even offers up his daughters. And the people in Sodom are like, no, we want these newcomers. Bring them out. And again, such a weird story. But these angels, disguised as men now, tell Lot, hey, get out of the city. God is going to destroy it. And the weird thing is, like, Lot doesn't just go right away. He kind of argues, no, I don't want to go to the mountains that you're telling me. There's a small town. Let me go to that. And the angels, they're like, fine, go there. All the angels tell them is like, don't look back. So Lot, he gets his wife, he gets his 2 daughters. They hightail it out of there. They get to this land called, I think it was called Zoar. And then suddenly God rains down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah. And with Lot's wife, she looks back. And I'm kind of wondering why she looked back. And also I'm kind of wondering, what exactly did she do when she looked back? Like, because when she did, was it like poof, she turned into a pillar of salt? Or was it a situation where it was like slow? Like, did the salt kind of come up slowly upwards? Did she have the agency to turn back towards the future where she was supposed to go, and everything would have been okay after that? We don't know. And I'm kind of wondering why Lot's wife looked back. And it's one of those situations where it's like that was the only home that she knew, even though Sodom was perverse, even though it was wrong, even though God had plucked that family out of a personal hell, so to speak. That was still home to her. That was still what was familiar to her. And for myself with this whole spiritual journey, it's hard for me to look, because I feel like I'm still probably looking back into my past, so it's very difficult for me to look forward. So that has been stuck on my mind, because I think in all of our lives, we need to look forward. And I'm trying to find scripture where it does encourage to look back. And if there's anything that I can find, it's to look back at Jesus Christ, especially what he did at the cross, especially with the Eucharist, especially with sacrament meeting, especially when it comes to communion. So I'm still wrestling with that right now. But here's a weird coincidence from this whole Utah weekend, because I had talked with the Orem Temple, I had talked with this one about the talk with the parable of the pearl and the box. And, Elder Bednar had been kind of promoting that idea. And that's where I got it from both my tour guides. As I'm leaving Utah for that weekend, all of a sudden, like, I'm trying to find, where the TSA checkout line is. I'm walking straight, and all of a sudden, Elder Bednar, of all people, in his suit with a few associates, walks straight towards me. And at first, I'm like, that can't be him. It can't be him. And then I saw a couple of people, bring out their phones. They started taking pictures. I'm like, it's really socially awkward, but I should get my phone out. And by the time I turned around, it was too late. I just remember seeing like some janitor walk by. I think I got a video of a few guys in their suits going down a escalator or a de-escalator, I don't know. But it was just another weird coincidence during this whole spiritual journey. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been going to on a much more consistent basis in the past month to my local Lord. We'll see what happens with it. Just keep me in your prayers. Always appreciate it, because I don't know where this is going to go. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this visit to the St. George Temple. Again, I want to say thanks very much to my tour guide, Steve, and also to Russ and Dana and all the volunteers who helped out with that St. George Temple. The fact to even go to this and get a tour of this was just, again, blows my socks off to do something like this. So thank you very much. I'll have other videos, one more for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with a ward visit in Utah. So stay tuned in the future for that. But until next time, hope you have a good one.